Hey guys, welcome back. So now that we have our store, we need to be able to modify the values inside the store. To do that, we use something called actions. And the actions, they are dispatched to the store. So it's pretty easy to dispatch an action. We just have to use the store.dispatch and dispatch the action. The only thing special about the action should always have a type. And here, let's do the type add entry. And this type, you can write whatever you want, but it's normally the convention is to use capital letters and the underline here between two different words. Now, if I save that, nothing's gonna happen, because we're not doing anything with this. So the first thing I need to do is to receive this action here as a second parameter on my create store. Now that we have the action, let's go ahead and console log the action so we can see what it looks like. And now we can see the action being fired, and you can see sometimes it gets called as well here, and that is the reason that Redux needs to have pure functions, because the functions can be called multiple times and we always have to have the same response for the same entries. So if we call add entry, it should always have the same response for each time we call. Now what we need to do here is to loop this action and see what type of action it is and what we need to do. To check the results, let's duplicate this line. So we're gonna see it logged twice, and we compare before and after. I'll say before, after. And as you can see, they both are the same. Now let's go ahead and do something with this action. So the way that we normally do is we use this switch statement, and I'm using here my shortcut, and for the key it's going to be action.type, and for the case we're going to have add entry. Now we always break on the end of the case because otherwise it rolls to the case below. Now also as a default, we normally return the original state. So in case we don't match this action type, we just return the same state we receive. And that's because the Redux will run through all your stores for all the events. And we're gonna see that later on. But for now, let's just return the state as a default. Now here we have to do something with this action, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna add a new entry. So we're gonna say const new entries, it's gonna be equals, and I'm gonna use entries.concat, and I'm gonna concat a new value, and it's gonna have an ID of 5. It's gonna have a description of hello from Redux. It's gonna have a value of 100, and its expense, it's gonna be false. Now here should be a comma. And now if we save this, so now if we look here, we see that we have before 4 values and after undefined, but we just add a new entry here. And I know entries.concat is pure, it creates a new array. So what we're missing here is just to return new entries, and this new entries is going to be our new state. So let's go ahead and save this, and now it runs, and we see before we have 4 and now we have 5. But We don't want to add these values here or pass these values some other way. We want it to come with our dispatch. So we need to pass these values here. And let's see how we can do that on the next class. I'll see you there. Hey guys, welcome back. So now I have my browser open here, and I wanted to leave this open here so we can see the changes as I make them. And I also have here my text editor, and I just want to hide this terminal because it's on the way, but remember my React application is running. So I'm hiding this, and here on the side I also gonna hide this pressing Command B. Now we have a little bit more space to work here. So now let's start building our application, and the first thing I want to do is I'm gonna remove this. Now I'm gonna open a curly brace here after return, and I'm gonna create a container. And you can see here my auto import already found it for me, so I can press tab and it will auto import here for me. If you don't have the auto import, you can just manually type this. Now after that we're gonna do a header. Same thing, it's auto importing there. And I'm gonna say as h1, so this is just the type of header I want it to be an h1. And here I'm gonna put the application name, so get. Now let's save it, and we can see the application name, it's here now. Now I want to create some statistic, so I'm gonna say statistic, and here I want the size to be small. Now we're not going to see anything because we didn't add anything inside, but now we can see I need to open curly brace, statistic.label, and here our label will be your balance. So your balance column, let's save it, and we can see there on the bottom. And here we can just do another statistic and say statistic.value, and here will be the balance of the person. And let's just start with something like 2,553 cents. Let's save it, and you can see that's in there. And as you can see, we don't have much of CSS going on here. So what we need to do is something that I forgot. We need to go back to our index. So I'm gonna come here, and on my index file, I can just import my CSS here. So I'm gonna say import Semantic UI CSS, and here is our node module. And then from this, what we need to do is to import semantic.main.css. So we just want to import the CSS file from here. And now if we refresh this file, it looks a lot better. So let's come back to our app.js now and continue building our application, and continue building our application on the next class. I'll see you there. Hey guys, welcome back. So now let's go ahead and create our React application. So to do that, I'm going to use npx create React app, and I'm going to give the application name, and that is going to be get. And sorry, I didn't have a better name, so maybe you can post it on the comments some better name ideas for the app next time. And what this is doing, this is installing all the React application with all the dependencies and the development dependencies for us. And once it's finished, we're gonna be able to go ahead and install the few things we still needed and start our application. So now that the application finished creating the React app, we can just cd inside the directory. So cd get, and here we're gonna install two new dependencies we need for the UI. So I'm gonna use yarn add, and if you use npm, use npm install. And the dependencies we need is Semantic UI React and Semantic UI CSS, all separate by dashes. And this is just gonna help us to make our application look nicer. And now that everything finished install, we can just go ahead and call code insiders dot, and this will open code insiders inside this directory for us. Now here we have our React application, and we can go ahead here and open the terminal inside code, and that's just control backtick, and we are already inside get, and I can just say yarn start, and this will start my Chrome, and here just asking me if the terminal can access Google Canary. And now we have our application running. So now let's go ahead, put this to the side, and start deleting things we don't need it. So let's have a look top down. So first we have our node modules where all the node packages are installed. So everything from here into node from our development. So things like React, React DOM, React scripted, all in here inside this module. And this module is on .git ignore, so it doesn't get committed because we don't really need that. We can download it, everything we need every time we use it. Now we have our public folder, which has this 5 icon here on the top and has some manifest and this is files for PWA, and this is for Google or search engines. We don't really gonna touch this. Now we have our source. We come back to this in a minute. Our git ignore that we already talked about. Those are the files that are not gonna be committed to Git. Our package.json, here on the top we have some metadata about our application, like the name, the version, and if it's private. We have some dependencies, so we just store Semantic UI, it's in here. We also have some scripts, so basically to start, to build, to test, and to eject. And eject, it will eject your application, so you can change things on the compiler, on Babel, and everything that goes behind the scene that create React app, make it so easy for us. So we're not gonna touch this as well. Then we have our ESLint config, and linting is nothing more than automated checking of the source program for stylistic errors. So it changes things like double quotes for single quotes, or space to tabs, things like that. We're not going to change that as well. And then the browse lister that should be supported, and the development. So it doesn't really matter this for us. Our README, this is the file that you normally see when you go to GitHub. You see some page on the top with details about the application. It has their own way to format things using the hash or 2 hash or 3 hash for the header, and the backticks for some code in bold, and some other details here. So don't worry about this yarn error. This is just a file that I created because I run a yarn command by mistake. And then we have yarn lock that just lock the version of the node modules for the version we are using on this application. So now let's go back to source, and in source we have all the application that creates this that we see here. We're gonna go ahead and delete some things here. So let's go ahead and start in deleting this logo. We don't really need the logo, and as soon as I delete it, I see an error here because the logo is being imported inside this file. So let's go ahead and delete this, and actually let's delete everything between these two divs. Let's save it. Now it's a blank application. We can also delete this app test.js. This is for testing. Now we have our index and our index CSS. Let's just leave it there for now. That's basically the entry of our application, and what it's doing is importing our app. Then it's inject our app on our DOM where we have the element by ID root. And if we look on our public, on our index, we do have a div with ID of root. So what the application is doing is saying, okay, we start with this index file, and as soon as we run this code, I want to go get that div and put all the application inside this app in there. And of course, we're gonna go and add all our details inside this app. Now we have this report web vitals and setup test. This we don't need it as well, so let's just delete these two files. Delete that, and we're having an error because these files are imported here. So on the bottom of our index.js, we do have this. Let's delete it. And on the top, we do have the import statement. So let's save, and now it's back working again. We can come here on our app.js, put something inside here, say hello from .get. Let's save it. Let's refresh it here, and there is our message. So on the next class, let's go ahead and start building our application. I'll see you there. Hey guys, welcome back. So now to start with Redux, let's go ahead and start some dependencies we're gonna need. So I'm gonna run yarn add, and we're gonna need Redux and React Redux. So Redux is the actual framework, and React Redux is what makes connection between the React and Redux. So I'm gonna press enter, so it will save that. And I also want to use a development tool for Redux called Redux DevTools. So let's say yarn add -d for development, because this doesn't need to go to production. And here we're gonna say Redux -dev tools, and we're gonna use that later on the course. Now that everything is installed, let's do a yarn start. And our website start here. Let's go ahead and open our app.js. And for now, I'm gonna put the code in here, and then we refactor a little bit later. So let me make some space, and we don't need this on the bottom as well. Now, what I want to do is create a store. So the first thing to create a store is to import create store, and I'm going to say import from Redux, and here will help me with the autocomplete. It's a name appropriate create store. Now that we have create store, we have to create a store. So I'm gonna come after the states and effects. So right here, let's make some space here, very easy to see. And here I'm gonna create my first store. So I'm gonna say const store. It's gonna be equals create store. And create store takes a function, and we need to pass this function here. And this function will have an state, and then we will have to do something with this state, and that's the famous reducer that we know. And here for now, I'm just going to return the state. Now here the state has nothing, so I'm going to initialize with this value here from the initial entries. Let's go ahead and say copy that, and we can paste that here, say equals this. So my initial state is going to be equals, and I'm going to need parentheses for that, the initial entries. So now if I save that, you shouldn't see anything different. Now this store has some methods, and one of these methods is getState. So here we can do a console log of our state dot get state, and this will tell what's inside our store. So here it should be store. Let's save it. Now if we go to console, let's refresh this, we can see that this is getting called, and we get these 4 entries, that is the 4 we have here on our store. And to be more explicit, we can even go ahead and add before this console log store, and there it is. Now don't worry about this. This is something with Semantic UI that they is doing it wrong, so let's not worry about that for now. So now that we have the store, let's go ahead and see how we can update the state inside the store. But let's do this on the next class. I'll see you there.